Hi everyone, welcome to our review of Star Trek Picard. Today we're doing episode 3 of season 2. I'm joined by my nerd friends, Alan and Namir.
Hello.
And we are all Trekkies. Some are more Trekkies than others. You have Alan on the extreme level on this side and Namir on the, I forgot what the name of that episode is, on the other side. And I'm right in the middle.
I need more hands up here!
Doctor, how much longer?
We're working on it!
Calculating temporal trajectory.
Whoa, I'm no longer in command of this ship.
Okay, so this one here felt like it was a little slower pace than we've had for the last couple weeks. I still liked it. There were parts of it that fell flat for me. I found I was good up till they went back to Earth, and then I was like, the Earth stuff is kind of like, yeah, right now.
I largely agree with Alan. I think that it was riding a lot on the awesomeness of the episode before it. So there was kind of like a residual glow that affected this episode, and you're like, oh, this is going to be really good, and then it just kind of became mediocre. But having said that, it had this amazing scene with what's her name, Alison Pill and Picard and the Borg Queen, which was, oh man, it was incredible. That scene made the episode for me, but the rest of it was pretty meh.
I really liked this episode. I didn't like it as much as the last episode because the last episode was pretty great. And I have a hard time really judging this episode because it really feels like a part of a bigger story. And I had more the impression on this episode that I was watching like what's going to end up being like a 10-hour feature film, and we just got into the end of Act 1, the transition into Act 2. Like, the hero has accepted the challenge and has gone on his or her journey. And so it's like if I just watched 15 or 20 minutes of a good movie, I'd be like, well, that was a good 20 minutes, but it's hard to judge it like as a standalone thing. In the last video we did, we were all speculating about how they were going to resolve that cliffhanger. And so what did you guys think about the resolution of that?
Yeah, that pretty much played out like I expected, where I mean, I didn't expect him to kill him that quickly. Spoiler alert, Seven's husband. And it kind of made me feel like since they killed him and pretty much everybody else that they encountered in that alternate timeline, that they probably won't end up going back there. It's story-wise, which is I was kind of hoping that they would come back to that and like you said last week, like explore that world a little more. But I feel like killing Seven's husband, and there's really nothing to come back to. There's no like loose ends that need to be tied up. So I feel like maybe they won't be going back to that, which is a little unfortunate because that was fun to watch. But yeah, it pretty much, it resolved itself before the opening credits. It was the usual, like, I'll catch them off guard and take their weapon and take control of the situation. But I was still, it felt like continuation of last week, so I was really enjoying it. Well, like I said, up to the point where they actually beamed down to Earth, I was really still riding on that high from the last episode. But yeah, that's it was a very quick resolution to last week's cliffhanger, and I mean the Elnor's fate was unexpected. So yeah, a little bit disappointed that we're not gonna see him, because I do enjoy him, even though he's still a little bit underdeveloped. He brings some comic relief and some of the badass action scenes. So I guess we won't see that, at least till Q revives him or something, maybe. I think it took him long enough to give Seven like Namir said last week, like why doesn't he just ask a question that only his wife would know the answer to, and then he finally decides to do it before he gets shot. Oh, just what his full name was.
Yeah, he's like, "What's my last name?" And Seven's like, "Ah,
the Magistrate Smith."
This is multiple choice.
Magistrate?
How many chances can I call a friend? Do I have a lifeline?
Yeah, I mean, it played out exactly like the rest of us thought it was going to play out, right? They were quickly dispatched, which I have a couple of issues with. I guess the first thing is they really like to murder people. Like, they have no qualms about disintegrating anybody or cutting their throats. Like, it's pretty brutal. And the thing that I don't understand is they all have the same weaponry. So why was theirs set to disintegrate, and when they shot Elrond, he just got this, like wound. He didn't get disintegrated. Like, what was the difference there? I think we know the answer. I think we know the answer to that. It's drama. The answer is drama. The answer is
the heroes
drawn
plan
out,
on
lame drama.
The heroes plan on resetting the timeline so everybody's expendable. It's like, this isn't going to matter when we succeed. So
I don't think they were thinking that. I don't think they didn't do that logical exercise while they were disintegrating all of them. And I think it was a bit of a missed opportunity because I thought they were setting up the magistrate as kind of like the antagonist, right? As somebody that was kind of applying pressure and following them, and kind of this driving force, right? That they have to always kind of be aware of. So one of the things that I really noticed about this episode was that there wasn't a lot of energy, like there wasn't a lot of tension, other than that scene with the Borg Queen, because they didn't have a real antagonist. And the magistrate could have been that person. So I don't know why they got rid of that character so quickly. But I how I feel about the Elrond character. Like, I think he was not well used or well written. So I think they probably did the right thing by kind of getting rid of him. But I have a feeling that they did that because they wanted to give Raffi some sort of emotional beats to round out her character a little bit, but I don't think it's working. I don't think like she's dealing with it the way that you would expect her to deal with, which is not interesting, right? Like she's dealing with it by being super angry and aggressive, and and I think that's what you would expect from her character, which is kind of boring. So it's another missed opportunity. But I'm glad they got rid of that character, because what are they going to do with him? And he's going to be back, right? Like, they'll fix the timeline and he'll come back. He's not gone. But during the time where he is gone, we can enjoy it.
I just finally understood that you've been saying Elrond with a D this whole time, and that Elrond refers to a character in Lord of the Rings.
Yes, that's correct.
See, I thought you were just purposely mispronouncing his
he was
name.
like an elf.
Like because I heard Elrond like L. Ron Hubbard, like Elrond.
Oh, that works too. Whatever. Yeah, that was the joke. You're absolutely correct. Thank you for explaining it.
I get it now. I get it. It was a Lord of the Rings reference. Okay.
This evil cannot be concealed by the power of the elves.
Yeah, I thought it was really funny when I was watching that scene, because Alan, you had said, well, it's obvious they're going to dispatch those, lackeys very easily. And so I was waiting to see how that would turn out. And it was exactly as you predicted. They were just like distracted momentarily, and then they grabbed the gun out of their hands and like vaporized them. And it was like, okay, that's done. Let's move on to the plot. Now, what's interesting is, unlike Namir, I'm rewatching all of season 1 right now, because I realized I haven't seen it in 2 years or whenever it first aired, and so I'm trying to, just get more of a context of, and I'm enjoying it a lot more. That's number one, and I'm seeing it totally different. But and I'm seeing how Elnor and how his character is developing and all that stuff. So, I didn't love that they killed him off, and on one hand, I feel like it's like they realized they had too many characters, and so they kind of got rid of Soji by making her just not be on this mission, and now they killed off Elnor. And I think probably for a couple reasons. One, when Spock was on Earth in 1986, they hit him by putting they hit his ears by putting the bandana on. Or when he went back in time in the was it the Guardian, the City on the Edge of Forever? He had a toque on. And in this case, it's like, let's just kill him. That's how we'll solve the ear problem. We'll just kill him. And
Well, he had long hair. He could have just wore his hair down.
Maybe they just didn't have the budget for a toque. They're like, this is going to be 3 toques we have to buy for this character. No, let's just kill him off. We can't afford it.
So, and I feel like they're probably, you're right, that they're probably going to bring him back, but then it's a little bit wasted. Like, you get a death that's not really a death, and it's just kind of wasted.
Yeah.
And then at the same time, if they didn't bring him back, then it'd feel like they just kind of get rid of this kind of what I think is a really cool character.
You know what? I'm going to backtrack a little bit because I think Elrond wasn't interesting because he was sort of boxed a little bit by Raffi. I actually think maybe they should have gotten rid of Raffi's character instead of Elrond's character. Because then Elrond would have had to have broken out of his shell a little bit and dealt with some grief. And then everybody else would have had to have dealt with, like Picard would have been much more affected by Raffi dying than Elrond. And actually, Elrond is really only good in those fish out of water situations, right? Because he's like this, he's a Spock character. He looks at everything like with innocence in a child's eyes, So in 2024, he would have been perfect because everything is like he doesn't understand anything that's going on. So I think they made a huge mistake. They should have gotten rid of Raffi because she's not that interesting, but Elrond could have been.
They didn't have to kill anybody. They could have just dispatched those 2 lackeys and then gone on with the mission.
No, I disagree. I think they definitely had to kill someone. They definitely had to murder someone.
So what did you guys think of the time travel sequence? I found it very reminiscent of Star Trek 4.
Oh yeah, I assume that was intentional. That it kind of had that feel like. At least they didn't do the bad CGI with like the clay heads coming in and out of the clouds. That was weird in Star Trek 4. I don't know what the point of that was, but yeah, all the other stuff that was very reminiscent of their trip back to 1986. I think they did that was intentional, probably.
What's 9? What's 9? 9 + 2.
It's interesting that you bring up the CGI clay sequence, that early CGI that they used in Star Trek 4, because as I was watching this time travel sequence and how it was like swooshing and going backwards, I was like, oh, I like the Star Trek 4 one way better. There was like a mystery and mysticism and in consciousness, and they were kind of doing the same thing, but it wasn't like they weren't going all the way. They could have really done something like LSD.
But it is the human thing. Our mission. Spock, you're talking about the end of every life on Earth.
It's been a while since Star Trek 4 has been referenced in anything, so for it to get referenced is great.
Do they really reference it? I don't remember catching any real references. There's no whales in the episode.
It was more of a homage to
those 2 scenes, the time travel scene and the arrival scene, are kind of mirror scenes to what you see in Star Trek 4.
Right. Yeah, but obviously it's not as entertaining and they don't do it as well. So I kind of wish they didn't bother and they just did their own thing.
Yeah, exactly. Because Star Trek 4, I think you can take something bad and then make it good. Something bad with a good idea but is not well executed, you can then, which is totally what TNG did. It took all these bad episodes from the first season and then did sequel episodes of them later, be it Q or Tasha Yar or whatever, and it was way better because the initial idea was good, but it just badly executed. In this case, they're referencing a movie that does the execution perfectly. The time travel sequence in Star Trek 4 is amazing, and the them arriving at Earth and all that is note perfect. So like, what are they going to contribute or add to that? I think then they would have to do the opposite. They would have to do something totally different to distinguish themselves.
One of the things that I think it was also missing, if we're thinking that this episode is an homage to Star Trek 4, Star Trek 4 was hilarious. Like, it was genuinely funny. And I think this episode tried to be funny. Like, they did a couple of things where they were like, fish out of water jokes, but none of it ever landed. Like, it was just like badly done. Like the stuff with Rios in the medical clinic where he's trying to pretend that he's a doctor and all that stuff. You can kind of see they're trying to play it for laughs a little bit, but none of that. Like, it's like they don't know how to be funny. They don't know how to do comedy. So they probably shouldn't try, because the best scenes are the ones that aren't funny. Although Alison Pill is pretty hilarious, but the best scenes are the ones where there's actual real tension and real drama. So I don't know. I think they should probably not try to do it anymore.
Well, it's too late because they've already done it. They haven't released the episode yet.
Yeah. We should. You know what we should do? We should go back in time, and then talk to the production team and say, don't do comedy.
That's right. Or just do the episodes ourselves.
Why'd you watch where you're going, you dumbass? Well, I'll double dumbass on you.
There's that thing where they crash land on the ship, and the Picard vineyard is what I understood. But my question was, do the Picards own that, like, 400 years in the past? And aren't they home? Don't they hear this huge spaceship, like, crash in their vineyard? Like,
wait, what? They crashed the ship in the Picard vineyard?
They look pretty far away.
Well, no, because this is what happened. They were gonna. The ship was out of control. They were gonna crash, and they didn't want to crash in Los Angeles. And Picard says, "I have an idea," and then he crashes a ship, and then they go, "Well, where are we?" And he's like, "Home." So I assume home is his vineyard.
Well, yeah, I thought that was a nice touch too, because when they crash at Chateau Picard or Le Bar, wherever they are, like, it's dark, and then they beam over to LA and it's daytime. So they actually thought about that it would be nighttime in France before they go to LA. So that's kind of how I put it together.
Don't give him credit for that. That's like basic continuity. You can't.
I know, but you see that crap all the time and stuff. They make glaring errors like that, and I appreciated that they actually made a note of that they were on the opposite side of the planet.
So I guess I missed this, or wasn't paying attention or something. So they crashed in France?
Well, where did you think they crashed?
I just thought they found a forest around LA somewhere.
So you thought they were outside of LA somewhere. But so what did you think when Picard said, "We're home. I'm home. We're home"?
I just thought he meant Earth. Why?
Why did you think they crashed at night and then they beamed out into daytime?
I didn't pay attention to that. You know what I was thinking? All I was thinking was they're crashing into this forest at 10,000 kilometers an hour, and there's no damage to the ship, and they're all okay. That was what I was thinking. I was like, this doesn't make sense. They should have flown right through the view screen.
I think that, like, when I saw the ship, it looks like it's armored now, like the La Sirena. Like, kind of like Voyager's armor that they got from the Borg at the end of Voyager. Maybe they use that technology.
Is it armored against physics?
Well, it's just armored. It's heavily armored. It went through Borg, like a Borg fleet, and didn't hurt Voyager. So, I mean, that must be pretty powerful stuff. You put your inertial dampeners on, you got some heavy armor, then you can crash through anything.
Oh, that's true. If you have the inertial dampeners and you reverse the polarity, you're fine.
Oh yeah, that works every time.
It solves everything.
I thought the interesting touch was that they land they go to a sanctuary district. You can see the signs of sanctuary district.
Oh, I noticed that too. Yeah, it's cool.
That was interesting.
Past tense. Although the sanctuary districts in past tense were in San Francisco, so we're assuming that in this hypothetical near future, the sanctuary districts exist in Los Angeles as well.
Actually, to flex my nerd muscle here, well, not really since I watched it today, I went back to past tense, and Cisco actually says they were in every city in America at the time.
Oh, interesting.
And what year does that take place in, that episode?
2024. Yeah.
Ah, I see.
So there will be one in LA. Uh-huh.
Wait a second. So Deep Space Nine, they go to LA in 2024?
To
No,
San
they go to
Francisco.
San Francisco.
Oh, I see.
And have you seen that episode, Namir? There's basically these districts where all the homeless people, like, they just shove them in these neighborhoods, and they.
I did not watch a lot of Deep Space Nine. I just couldn't get into it. I know. I don't know why. I had trouble with the fact that they were on a space station. Like, I feel like if it's Star Trek, things should be moving. And I know later on they had this ship because they realized that people had problems with it, but I couldn't do it. I know I'm mean to go back.
Your inflexibility with anything different started early in your life.
Jeez.
It really did. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, no, for sure. For anything that's not great, I don't tend to like.
Well, Deep
Like
Space Nine is
Discovery.
typically at the top of people's Star Trek lists.
I don't want to get sidetracked here, but you these are them are fighting words if we're talking about Deep Space Nine.
So here's the thing. I know that it got better past the first season. I couldn't get past the first season. I had a lot of trouble with that.
You know what we're gonna do after we review all of Picard and all of TNG? We're gonna review Deep Space Nine.
No.
We're gonna be here for years and years. We're
Oh
gonna
my
be old and
God.
gray.
I'm gonna be so mad all the time. Just, my kids will be like, I don't know what happened. My dad used to be so nice, and then one day he just became very angry.
So I thought that was interesting when they were in LA. There was the sanctuary districts. Was that they were really touching on, Alan, you were talking about this, that in the last episode, how Star Trek doesn't tend to be directly political, but I felt like they were kind of doing that in this episode because, living in LA, there's a big homelessness problem here, and so obviously the writers live here, I would assume, and so they're kind of taking the issues that are going on now. So the three issues that they highlighted in this episode was homelessness, global warming, i.e. fires everywhere and all that kind of stuff, which happens here as well. And then the third thing was the ICE, the immigration police, coming in and arresting the poor immigrants. And that's less on the people's radar right now, but it was like during the whole Trump administration, like it was talked about a lot. And so anyways, so I feel like they're really tackling these political issues like head on and making a kind of a reference to them or talking about them. Anyways,
That's what I felt like is that they didn't do enough of that in this episode. They kind of glazed over. They just kind of landed in the sanctuary district and then they just wandered off to where they had to go to take their scans. And I'm like, because even in past tense, like they say the sanctuary district is basically a jail. Once you go in, you don't come out. It's the law. So how did Raffi and Seven just walk right to that fancy new tower? How to get out of this district? That I felt like that was kind of weird, and that they didn't address that, or and that they didn't really like really get into the plight of the people who were in those areas, or because they just beat that one mugger and then they quickly knock him out and steal from him, and then it's like, oh, that's.
But that's sort of been my complaint about this whole season, is that they have these interesting ideas, but they don't explore them, right?
Yeah,
like
trot it right on through.
Yeah,
And like,
yeah, exactly.
Didn't really address they acknowledged it, but they didn't really have to confront any of the harsh realities that those people probably facing. They just took that poor guy's money and wandered off. I'm like, okay, yeah, see ya. We got shit to do.
As a new Angelino, I would say that felt false to me.
Really? No one's ever mugged you in LA? I find that hard to believe. Wait a second. If no one's mugged you, that means you're doing the mugging.
Okay. this is kind of an aside, but I'm watching the whole episode with a slightly different eye because I live here, and it's interesting because they say, so that tower they go to, the top of the tower is the Intercontinental Hotel in downtown LA, and it's a newer building, and they say, oh, this is the tallest building in LA, and it is technically correct, but it's only taller than the US Bank building because of the spire, the antenna. But the building itself is not taller than the US Bank Tower, which is the tower that gets blown up in Independence Day, just for a reference. So that would have been a way cooler building to go onto the top of. But I kind of wondered if it was like a placement, like a, what do you call it? A product placement kind of thing? Like that Paramount owns the Intercontinental Hotel, so they wanted to like film there? Because it's not the tallest building, so why would they go to that building?
But they don't show any of the inside of the hotel. It's like a terrible ad for a hotel.
Yeah, it's just outside the building. They pan up.
Yeah, they just go to the roof. They meet this weird security guard and they go to the roof. This creepy security guard.
Who's way funner than Kevin.
Yeah, it's way funner than Kevin.
I mean, you can't let Kevin be funner than you. You.
Kevin is not funner than me.
Oh, man. So who do we think the Watcher is?
I think it's going to... I was thinking... There was a part of me that was thinking that it was maybe Soji.
Well,
Soji?
Yeah, that they that somehow... Because it's Q. Q could, like, take anybody and put them anywhere. So I'm not saying it's Soji, but I'm just saying, like, there's this whole character and role, and that's missing right now. And they're talking about a person who's a mysterious person. So I just go, well, maybe it's that actor that's always already contracted to be in the show for like 10 seasons, maybe 10 episodes, and maybe they're going to...
I watched the promo for next week's episode, and there's some sort of dude that's walking with Picard or something, and he has like white eyes and like long scraggly hair. He kind of reminds me of that guy with the weird eyes from the motion picture, like that alien with the big head. And if you know what I'm talking about, I don't think he had a name. But I don't know. It could be a new character. That's what I'm thinking. Is like, oh, maybe that's an alien that they find, and he's the Watcher.
Oh, that's a good point, because I remember seeing that in a trailer as well, but I didn't put it together.
Yeah. So I don't know who that dude is, but he looks like he might be, something important. Obviously, at a place in the 21st century Earth. So
I don't know, man. I have no idea. I kind of wish they had given us some clue at the end of this episode, because it would have made the episode feel relevant and not just like filler. But it could be anybody. Who knows? That's such a weird character, because they don't really explain anything about the Watcher. They're just like, oh, go talk to the Watcher. Well, why? What's the Watcher watching? The Watchmen? Like who? Anyway, but part of me was worried that it was going to be Data, because I remember seeing Data in the trailer.
You mean not Data, but Brent Spiner?
Isn't that Data?
It's Data and all of his relatives.
Oh,
all the
right.
The Soong family.
Oh, right. Arnold Soong or whatever.
Yeah, everybody in the Soong family has to look like Brent Spiner for some reason.
Right. Okay. So yeah. So I was worried he was going to be one of the Soongs, but honestly, I don't really care, because they don't really set up that character with any sort of like stakes, right? There's nothing, like the character is just there to give them something to do, right? But you don't know why, other than you just got to find this guy, right? There's nothing else there. So like that's what I mean. Like the episode is a little bit, it feels a little listless and empty, because there's no real tension or stakes in it. I don't know. Do I care? I don't even know if I care. I don't think I care. It could be anybody. It could be Lucas's dog. I don't know. Yeah, it doesn't matter to me.
Well, let's talk about the part that you like, Namir, which I also enjoyed. The where Alison Pill gets semi assimilated by the Borg Queen and all that. And I have to say that after watching that scene, I was like, oh, Alison Pill is like the superstar of this show. Like she's like Oscar caliber actress, and it's kind of like and that was like a showcase for her. And just like her like committing suicide or trying to commit suicide and killing Bruce Maddox in the first season was like these super intense scenes, was just like, look at how great this actress is. It's almost, she almost like eclipses Patrick Stewart because he's not doing that much heavy lifting in terms of the acting. He's kind of like just, and so anyways, I just want to predict right now that I think she's going to win an Oscar one day. And this is, but it's interesting because it's like the writers know that she's really good, and they give her stuff that none of the other actors could really do.
Yeah.
They just don't have that range, and she has this amazing range.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. Like she's amazing in that scene. Like, there's that one part where I guess the Borg Queen is going from emotional room to emotional room, and then she just switches on a dime. Like she's like angry, and then she's really super sad, and you can see the change happen, like in her eyes. Like she just changes. And then they have that one scene where they're both trying to take control of I guess like control of the Borg Queen and Alison Pill at the same time, and Picard's like, who's in control? And they're both like, I am, or whose arm is this? Mine. Oh man, it was so awesome. That was great. And then they should have ended it on that scene, because everything after that was just kind of like, meh, it didn't have that same amount of energy and tension and just like awesomeness. My favorite part of this entire episode was right at the beginning, where the Borg Queen's harness thing falls, and then Alison Pill, you see the camera on Alison Pill, and then she looks at the harness, and the Borg Queen is gone, and she's like, oh, where'd she go? And they pan, and then she's right there behind the crate. It's terrifying because you're not expecting it. She's like, ah, and you're like, oh my god.
Yeah, I really like that too.
That it's so great.
Really creepy. Yes.
Oh my god! And did you guys catch that Leah Thompson directed this episode?
So cool! Isn't that the actress from Back to the Future?
That's the same one. Who knew? And how fitting that she was back in Back to the Future, and now she's directing an episode of Picard that's about going back to the past and the future. It's so great.
I will just I was put in my 2 cents worth for the Borg Queen scenes. That was my favorite part of the episode too. Was when she basically owned the Borg Queen at the end there. That was so. Check my file on shit I stole from the Borg Queen. She realizes that she lost all the info. Oh, that was great. I feel like that's going to play out somehow, that when the Borg Queen says, like, you have impressed me. And it's like, oh. And there's a connection there now. And I feel like, Girardi will somehow... I think some people were even saying that they think that she might be the one that's on the bridge in the first episode, that she might become assimilated or join with the Borg in some capacity. So
yeah, I was thinking
that plays out. Yeah, because there must be something that now that she's on the Queen's radar for her abilities hopefully there's some good stuff to come from that.
Did anybody else imagine, like, when she was like, it's in my folder called shit I stole from the Borg Queen, I immediately imagined like Windows 3.1 and like a folder on the desktop and her going over and just clicking it.
Like, here's all the coordinates.
So then after, then there's that scene where Rios is in the makeshift hospital. I felt like it kind of felt like a little bit like on the nose, like, the plight of the poor immigrants and it
was very tropey.
Yeah. And I'm an immigrant, so I'm all for immigrants being positively portrayed. But I think when I'm watching a show and it's going immigrant good, police bad, like level of simplicity, then I feel like I'm being a little bit patronized.
And as soon as that scene started and the young Latin doctor was bringing in Rios, that first second I was like, oh, this is going to be a love triangle, and that's what it's going to turn out to be. right? Like it's totally telegraphed and completely predictable, which of course means it's not really interesting. So I think
And the
they're
boy
kind of
that
doing
needs
a
a father
disservice.
figure.
Yeah. Oh my God. Yeah, for sure. Like, there's definitely a lot of cliches.
So cliche.
And I kind of wonder if there was any Latin Americans involved at any level of the writing of this show, because my guess is no, and this is like a non-Latin American, perspective of Latin Americans, and even if it's a positive portrayal, I think that's what's contributing to the simplicity of it.
Well, I'm sure they have Latin American friends.
Yeah, and they just ask them like single mom doctors that own like clinics where they operate on immigrants, but illegal immigrants, and protect them from the police. And the Latin American friend says, "Of course."
Or the Latin American friend is like, and they're like, "Yeah, you do. Okay, we'll put it in."
I'll just go back a little bit. I loved Rio's beam in.
Oh, that's the best.
Goes midair and then do. Well, yeah, it's too bad that just led into some bad Grey's Anatomy type hospital cliches.
It was like my intellectual brain was criticizing it because it was very tropey, but the whole time I was watching the episode, I was having a good time and I was enjoying all of it. Even that cheesy stuff.
I had no problem with it, but I mean, well, yeah, on a because he's Rio's there. I can't remember the actor's name, but he's great. So like the acting is good, and it was nothing particularly bad about any of it. It's just that it's stuff we've seen before in other shows. So.
I guess, but it seemed pretty forced. Like I don't really understand why they had to do it in that particular way, right? I'm glad that they were talking about the issue itself because it's a relevant issue, but there's so many different ways of doing it, right? Like, and I guess the thing that I also have an issue with is that because he's a Latin character, this has to obviously be the issue that he's involved in. Like I think they could have been a little bit more subtle with it, and like it's a little stereotypical, and doesn't add anything to his character. Like it doesn't add any depth to his character.
And also he's a pretty even on the surface like a well-to-do white Latin American character or person. A lot of the Latin American immigrants here that have a little bit of a harder life that have those challenges are not well-to-do, super well body built, that kind of thing. They're not as well educated, and so that's a much more interesting, kind of character if you're going to explore that stuff, because those people have real, challenges in terms of fitting into society and getting a job and being racially profiled and all this stuff. But that guy would never get stopped, in LA. Like that guy's like, hey, you're one of us, kind of thing.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. Like they're both super good looking. So yeah, absolutely. Like, so I don't know. It definitely felt forced and unneeded, and not something that kind of developed in the story in any real organic way.
Mm-hmm. And then that's when the episode ended. They just took him away and the episode ended, right?
I don't know where the episode ended.
Picard's trying to hail him because they trace his communicator, but then he's being drug off to jail or detention or whatever.
Right, and his communicator is just sitting on the table.
Yeah.
Right.
You know what this reminded me of? It reminded me of the latest Terminator movie. It had a very similar kind of thing going on where they were bringing up issues of immigration and police state and all that sort of stuff. You guys seen the latest one? The one that?
Oh yeah.
The latest Terminator?
Terminator. What's it called? Terminator what?
Dark Fate.
Dark Fate. That's right.
I think so. Was that the one with what's her name from Game of Thrones?
It was the one with Linda. Well, Linda Hamilton.
No, that was the one before. Yeah, you're talking Amelia Clark there.
Oh yeah, she was in Terminator Genesis, but we're talking about the one after that, the one that came out like 2 years ago.
The one where they bring back Sarah Connor. Yes.
Oh yeah, okay, I remember that one.
Yeah, which I enjoyed as a movie, but it had the same kind of obvious beats, like we're making a political statement about immigrants and and women of color and that. And again, I don't mind that. Like, I think it's really important that obviously that the representation is updated and changed to like reflect society and be a lot more equitable. But I feel like a lot of times it's like shoehorned in, and it's not necessarily. I don't think it's written by people of those experiences necessarily. So it's kind of like this outsider perspective of like, and it feels a little bit like, just kind of like forced.
You know what? We should check. We should, if we're talking about it, we should check who wrote that episode.
But yeah, I felt like the ice raid wasn't the greatest cliffhanger. Like, I would have been more intrigued if it had ended on where the Queen says she's impressed by Girardi, because that felt a little chilling, like, and that it was going to lead to something significant. But yeah, I mean, since the hospital stuff, story wise was falling flat for me. Like, I wasn't really that excited about it, because what's coming. It's like he's going to go to detention. He's probably going to get harassed by authorities. He's probably gonna see other people being downtrodden by the state, and then he's gonna stage an escape, and they're gonna do a jailbreak, and it's all I feel like it's just gonna follow those typical beats you see from this sort of thing. So I mean, I hope they do something fun with it, but I feel like it's gonna I feel like we've seen it before. So
I don't know. I can't find it.
I really like their Seven and Raffi when she was describing what they were going to do. It's like, I am here to take I want to capture an image with my girlfriend. It's like, she means take a picture. It's like, yes, let me take our cellular photograph, and like, again, picture.
But you know what? That line would have been much better coming from Elrond.
Well, I mean, it was very 7 and 9 too. Like, it was. That's
the way
true. She says things. So,
I guess.
But in the end, both the little side trips weren't that exciting in this one at all. Like, the compelling stuff was definitely with Girardi and Picard. But I mean, hopefully the other side quests with the other characters, they get more interesting as it goes on.
Side quests. That's great. But that's what I think. Like, I think that the peak of this season was episode 2. I can't see it getting any better than that. And I think most of the good stuff is going to be Picard, Girardi, and the Borg Queen. Like, that's it. All the rest of it is just going to be like, we have to sit through all that other stuff to watch the stuff that we actually want to watch, right? Which is not going to be that significant in the episode, right? Like, that scene was really actually kind of short. Like, it was meaningful, but they weren't in it that much. It was mostly like Rios in the clinic, and then 7 to 9 and Raffi, right? So I'm kind of worried because like, it's going to be hard to judge these episodes because 60% of it's not going to be great, but the 30%, the remaining, is going to be really good. So does that make a good episode? I don't know. Like, I wish we could just edit out all the good scenes and then string it together into one like 2-hour episode.
Well, also, I think it's going to be like, I'll have to maybe reevaluate like the episodes based on how they all fit together in the story as a whole. Because if this episode is not that great, but overall and how it functions within the whole arc, and maybe it's great. Maybe the whole thing is going to be great, and it doesn't really matter if that episode isn't as good or whatever.
Oh, you mean the larger, like...
Yeah, it's going back to the idea of judging the episode as a part of a story as opposed to just its own, you know.
I don't know if I agree with that. I think the episode should also be judged on its own. Right? I don't think that it's.
You're doing a really good job of it.
What do you mean?
Of judging it on its own.
Yeah, because it's not a good episode, right? But how else are you going to judge it, right? Like, you can't. It just seems silly to judge it in the context of all 10 episodes when we haven't seen all 10 episodes.
Well, that's what I'm saying.
Right?
But at the end, when we've seen all 10 episodes, I might go back and.
I know, but it's a TV show. It's not a movie.
We can do that at the end.
I feel like you're making excuses for it for some reason.
Maybe, but I had a good time watching the episode. I just wasn't as good as the last episode.
Did you have a good time, really?
I did. I had a really good time. I didn't want it to end, and then when it ended, I was like, oh.
All right.
But
that's fair.
But yeah, but I I know I criticized a bunch of things about it, but like I said, I was having a good time the whole time. Like, because I watched it late last night, and I wasn't sure as I started. I'm like, do I really want to start this at 10 o'clock at night? And I don't know. And 3 minutes into the episode, I was like, oh yeah, I'm hooked. I'm so happy I'm watching this episode right now. And I enjoyed the whole episode.
Do you think maybe it's because your expectations have just been lowered so much that you'll enjoy anything?
That must be it. Yes. Okay, let's do our rating and we'll get out of here.
Again, I'm similar to Lucas. I had a good time watching it, but I did have my own gripes about that I didn't make the best use of time on the planet side stories. So. But again, really enjoyed the all the Borg stuff. That Borg Queen is the actress doing a great job. So I'd probably give this one a 7 because it faltered a little bit, and hopefully it picks up. And we'll see what it does next week. But yeah, there's still a lot of good stuff in there, and I enjoyed it.
The parts that I didn't like, I really didn't like, but they did a couple of good things, which was they killed off Elrond, which was fantastic. And they had that amazing Borg scene, which was phenomenal. So, yeah, I think he gets a 4. What was that, Lucas? I didn't hear. Elrond. He's dead, and he's going across to the Grey Havens, right? He's on where the Frodo and the Ring are now, on that ship.
I give this episode a 7 because I didn't like it as much. No, I didn't think the episode was as good as the first 2 episodes, but I actually enjoyed it a little bit more, a little bit more than the first episode. Just because it felt more sort of cohesive and more in the middle of the story, and I'm kind of along for the ride. And I felt the first episode was a bit clunkier. And I think that the second episode was it was so good that it kind of is a great springboard into this episode. Like, it's like there's this great momentum coming out of the second episode, and I still feel it in the third episode. It's not like killing that momentum. It's not destroying that in any way. And even though there are some cliches and some trite scenes, I enjoyed. I was along for the ride, and I always like time travel episodes, and this is like the first time travel episode of the season, so I'm really excited to see where it goes next.
Okay.
And so we'll be back. So we'll be back next week for our review of episode 4.
So we're gonna keep going. We're still reviewing these episodes.
Goodbye, everyone. See you next week. Make sure to like and subscribe and leave a comment if you want.
Are we supposed to be doing that? Is that a thing?